All right, hey everyone, back here for day 8, and as you can tell, I'm wearing the same T-shirt as day 7, day 6, which does not mean that I'm not changing my clothes. It actually just means that I'm filling some of these back to back and stacking up for later. So, I apologize if that kind of ruins the breaking the fourth wall here, or ruins the appeal for you guys, but much easier to batch a few 5 or 6 minute videos than to kind of do them each day or to change clothes in between. I guess I could do that, but where's the fun? In any case, wanted to talk today a bit more about, if you haven't seen yesterday's episode, highly recommend you do that. One Daily Thought number 7, Culture Becoming King. Today's topic is continuing that, more on what that means, that culture is becoming paramount, even supplanting economics as the dominant force shaping us. That's my contention. I talked about that yesterday. Today we're going to talk about what that means for the individual. So what should you do, basically, as a result, or what should we all do, given that that's the case? So, again, I alluded to this or mentioned it right at the end of last time, but I think it's more and more important than ever to understand that this cultural force has been democratized, and that your effect on culture and ideas and the topics at hand is more important than ever. And so, can borrow the Spider-Man quote: "With great power comes great responsibility." But seriously, your ideas and your thoughts and the way you share those has more of an effect than it probably ever has before. And you need to be responsible, and I need to be responsible in terms of how that's leveraged. There's kind of a secondary effect that I'm not going to delve into too much, that responsibility actually in theory kind of scales with the number of people you have who are listening to you. But I think generally stated, be thoughtful and be responsible with your ideas and your research, and try to make sure that your ideas are reflecting good knowledge. So that's one point. I think the second point that I want to bring up is that understanding these cultural movements is already becoming much more critical in terms of how culture shapes, but then because that's so closely tied to economics, that's going to have tremendous monetary value from here and moving forward. So I think understanding it both from a sort of classical perspective or almost intuitive perspective of how are people influenced, psychology is going to play a huge role in that, but also from a mathematical perspective. So being able to model a topic that's very hard, I've kind of barely dove into it at this point, but crowd dynamics and crowd mechanics is going to become more and more important. And I think we're already starting to see this with the rise of sort of influencer culture on platforms like Instagram and Twitter, and influencer marketing is already a quickly growing market. I think we're seeing a world where potentially, in the influencer sort of paradigm, or people who are influencers and have those skills, could see a rise in value pretty similar to that of computer programmers over the past 30 years. And that may seem like an insane claim, that someone who basically could potentially just be sitting around and posting things on Instagram or Twitter, could be the most valuable sort of commodity in society. But I think if we apply the statements covered last time around where the world of kind of where smart technology is leading us, I think you have to consider this as a viable claim. And it may be missing part of the picture, but I think it's possible, very possible, and potentially likely. So, I think the last point I'll mention in terms of, all this is that the other sort of aspect that I think would be really interesting to understand and look at is what I'll call the metacultural game, which sounds kind of ridiculous, like a huge set of buzzwords, but to put succinctly, basically the idea that can we figure out what we do want society to look like, and then sort of reverse engineer a process to get there, such that we can understand, is there an idea, or to borrow one of our previous episodes, a meme, or basically an idea or concept that we can implement in society now and kind of ingrain in society now, that will guide us to a better culture in the future rather than a worse one. So, as I have mentioned, I think last time, cultural changes are going to be hard, next to impossible to actually predict. But that doesn't mean that there aren't, because the system is chaotic, doesn't mean that there aren't rules or principles that apply to the system, and that we can predict some parts of it basically, but not the entire thing. And so given that, I think we need to look ahead to say, this is a subset of cultures that we would want. Let's figure out some principles or ideas that we can try to ingrain now. And each person individually could pick one concept that they feel will benefit society, given this sort of iterative development of culture that should help. That we need to put those, then let's try to put those principles in now and try to understand that with good likelihood that that'll impact a positive culture in the future. This is something I'll try to kind of develop my thoughts on over the next couple weeks, because I think, again, it's a very abstract but potentially important concept. But simply put, you should try to figure out what are some principles that, given the world we're heading into, will be helpful, and consider trying to fight for those. So that's all I've got on this topic. I'd be really curious to hear anyone's thoughts on this, as well as previous episodes. But I'd love to hear thoughts on how people think culture is going to change as a result, and what you think should be done about that. So leave your thoughts in the comments below, and look forward to seeing you all next time.